Okay, good morning, Dana. We are live.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm great and very honored that you asked me to share some of my story today. So excited to be here. So thank you for
Thank
inviting
you. Honestly, it is such an honor. For all my viewers who are watching, this is Dana Adamson. I've met her through the YMCA, where I tend to meet everyone.
me.
Turns out that Dana is an incredible leader in our in our community here in Dallas, Rockwall, Texas, and she played basketball at Ole Miss. So we have that common bond. She's raised kids, been a ministry leader in marriage and Bible study fellowship, and most recently went through cancer. So you have quite a journey. And so we're going to talk about the journey. And in particular, we're going to talk about fear and how we can face it, overcome it, and work through it. Because I think all of us, we have fears right now, of course, fear of the uncertainty. But also, I personally experienced fear of failure, what others think,
Yeah,
rejection. It runs the gamut, and it can really control us
agreed.
and prevent us from living the best life that God has for us.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of the intro of what we're going to talk about. But
Okay.
first off, let's talk more about your background and your story, your family. So if you wouldn't
Okay.
mind just giving a brief introduction of yourself.
Okay, sure. I was born and raised in a small town in Mississippi. And if I had to choose two words that would describe my childhood, it would be family and sports. I have four siblings, and so there was always someone to play with and something going on. And our extended family lived near, so cousins and grandparents were certainly a part of that. And so I was always with them, and my family loves sports. All of my siblings. I mean, we are really hoping that football season happens this fall because we'll be sad if it doesn't. But played a lot of basketball, and basketball took me to Ole Miss. And then right after Ole Miss, it brought me to Dallas to be the girls basketball coach at Lake Highlands High School. Um, the end of my second year there, I went on a blind date with Chris, and we married 4 months later. And that
Wow.
wow is right. I don't recommend that, but that is our story. About a year and a half into marriage, our son was born, and then our daughters came really quickly after that. And I was a stay-home mom then, and that's what I've continued to do. I've done family for like the last 30-ish years of my life.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I love, I didn't know that you were one of five kids. I am too.
Yeah,
And same thing. We all played sports growing up. It was nonstop.
yeah,
But then I had a blast
it
playing with
was.
them. It
Yeah.
was so I didn't know that about you. Ah,
Yeah, my brother was next to me in birth order, and he was one boy, all the rest girls.
okay.
And so I was like, I got to play with him and his buddies all the time. And so he really gave me a big advantage in sports, just playing with the guys.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about that 20-year-old Dana
Okay.
playing Division I basketball.
Okay.
And and let me back up and just tell people the first time I met you at the Y, uh, you were in my Les Mills grit class on the
Yes.
basketball court, and I came up and we were sprinting sideline to sideline,
Uh-huh.
and I remember challenging you personally, and I saw this fire lit in your eyes, in your body, and you just took off, and I'm thinking, who is this woman? I need to know her. What is her story? And
Yeah.
turns out you were, and still are, quite an athlete. But
Well, I don't know about that. A
I
little bit different
loved,
being almost 60 than being 20. I'll just say that. That's what you have to look forward to.
yeah, thank you. But you
Yeah.
are still fit and you still got the fire. So anyways, that's the first time I met you and I was just floored. But anyways, take us back to 20-year-old Dana. What was
Okay.
it like playing basketball, and what kind of fear? So we're zeroing in on fear,
Right.
and how we can conquer it. So, what was your journey like as a basketball player?
Well, going to Ole Miss, yes, there was fear involved with that. The first bit was just adjusting to college and being away from home for the first time. So that was difficult. But, basketball season rolls around and then you're so busy and love to compete, as you just said, and play basketball. So that got better. But really, the fear of failure became big. And as a freshman, I got to play a lot, and then I started as a sophomore, and my last 2 years there, we were really good. We were ranked pretty high nationally, and so you would have thought, okay, well, the fear probably went away. Like it probably loosened the script. You did it, you made it, but just the opposite was true. Because the expectations rise, and you know how college athletics works. Every year, your college coach is going out trying to recruit someone better than you. I mean, that's what they have to do. They have to be the best they can be. And so every year, they're bringing in these new people, and their goal is for them to be great. And so the competition was just hard every year. But I felt like the expectation was that I would start, that I would be a big contributor, that this is what people thought I should do. And so it was that fear of letting people down, or gosh, who was I if I wasn't this person, because my identity was so wrapped up in that. And so that was kind of how fear played out for me during college basketball.
You know what? That is so similar to my experience too. Now, we weren't ranked nationally, but I remember, I know the difference of playing in fear and playing in freedom and confidence, and the outcome is drastically different. And I think that transfers over into life. And so, and so then let's talk about when you had kids, and I'm a parent too, and we've got many parents watching, and I mean, you could be fearful every single day raising children.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the fears that you faced then as well?
Okay, let me say this. And when I was in college and had that fear, and I didn't handle it great. Like I never really overcame that during that season of my life. And the biggest reason for that is I wasn't mature spiritually during that season of my life. I didn't get my identity and my confidence in Jesus. I got it from my performance. Okay. Okay. So fast forward now I'm married and I have kids, and probably I had grown a lot spiritually in those years. I married Chris. Chris was a much more mature believer than I was when we first married, so he had a big impact. But I joined a Bible study called Bible Study Fellowship, as you mentioned, and that's where God changed my life. I developed the discipline of studying the Word every day, like He intends for us to. And think what happens anytime you spend intentional time with someone every day. I mean, you get to know them better. You know what they like. You learn more about them, so you appreciate them more. So that was my experience spiritually. And so that carried over into my parenting. That's why I said that. So, raising my kids, I had the same fears all mamas have, fear of their safety, fear of how other people are going to receive them, fear of like, oh my goodness, so much depends on me. I have to educate them. Should I homeschool? Should I do private school? Should I do public school? Wanting them to work toward a goal, but then the fear of them being disappointed if that doesn't work out. But I had grown so much in my faith at this point that ultimately for them, what I wanted for them more than anything else was to know and love Jesus. So whenever these fears came or situations came, I handled it better because I could see the big picture better. And so instead of being so focused on, them not having someone to sit with in the cafeteria on this day, it was more, what would He want us to do? He would want you to find the other person that doesn't have anyone to sit with, and try to approach it like that. So certainly I had those fears, and certainly they could be consuming, but I had learned enough at that point to go to Jesus with that. When I felt it kind of just controlling my mind and my decisions, I knew to go to Him. And I wanted for my kids to have their identity and confidence in Jesus. And so I had to live that out. I could either feed my fear and they would read on it and it would become their fear, or else I could point them to Jesus and say, okay, He has a great plan for you. And yes, some are going to be hard, but we're going to trust that He is going to work through this. And so that's kind of how I handled it during the child rearing years.
That's so good. And I similarly, through basketball and playing college ball, I actually never figured out how to conquer those fears either. And that's why I'm so interested in it, because even, as strong as we can be, sometimes those fears grip us. And then we would I love that you've brought into how your perspective changed as your faith grew.
Yeah.
And how it just kind of, the more you depended on God and looked to Him,
Yeah.
those fears, they might have still been there, but you were able to see them for what they were, I guess.
A great way of saying it. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to most recently. I mean, I would imagine your battle with cancer has really been, I would imagine, the biggest fear, time of potential fear of your life.
Okay.
That's what I would think, but I want to hear from you, what kind of cancer was it? And what was it like to go through it and battle it? You have an amazing family who just supported you through it all. So just love for you to share what you went through.
Okay. About a year and a half ago, I was diagnosed with double hit lymphoma. It's called double hit because 2 genes mutated instead of 1, which makes it much more difficult to treat. And the prognosis is poor. Well, that what I've learned now, I've learned a lot about cancer in the last little bit, but the first month after being diagnosed, anybody being diagnosed with cancer, it's just kind of like a blur. You're just trying to process it. You have lots of appointments to go to, more PET scans, bone marrow biopsies, labs. So it's just information overload. What we kind of settled on, my treatment was 6 rounds of very intensive chemo. A round consisted of, first I received spinal chemo. Then after that, it was 24 hours of IV, very intensive IV chemo, 24 hours for 4 consecutive days. So basically I would go on Monday, get hooked up and be on it continuously until Friday. And then I would have 2 weeks off. So fear, certainly. The first one was fear of death. I knew that death was a real possibility for me. And so I'm not a person that can process that by just pretending it's not so and not letting your mind go there. I needed to acknowledge it and to kind of work through that. And I needed to put words to it. And Chris was that person for me. I would say anybody going through a trial like this, have that person. It could be a spouse or a trusted friend or anybody. But Chris was that person for me who would, who I could talk to about it. And we had to talk through it. We talked about what it would be like not to grow old together. We talked about me missing my kids and watching them parent and me supporting them. We talked about my grandkids not really knowing me. We talked and we cried and we grieved. And then we didn't stay in that place, but I needed to go through, I needed to put words to it because that was real. And then we kind of got up and we lived that day. The other fear was like the fear of the impact chemo would have on my body. Those immediate side effects are not fun. And then the possible long-term effects. So those were kind of the fears that I dealt with during that time.
And so then how did you, I know Chris and your family were amazing support. And so between them and then your faith, how did you start to work through those fears? What was your mindset? I'm sure it was a roller coaster, some good days, some harder days.
True. That's true for any cancer journey, I would say. But, God taught me so much in this time. The first thing is, I just had to process it all. And I had to acknowledge that God allowed this. I don't say that God caused it, but we live in a broken world because of sin. Because of sin, we have hurt and disease and disappointment and death. And God doesn't cause those because He doesn't cause sin, but God is sovereign. And God certainly could have stopped it had He chosen, but He did not choose to stop that. And that actually gave me a lot of peace to know that I was in the center of His will, to know that I was exactly where He wanted me to be. I didn't randomly or accidentally have this. And so I knew God had a purpose in it. And if by God having a purpose in it, it gave me a purpose in it. And that was to glorify Him in that journey, wherever it took me. Being a believer, I have the assurance, I know that I'm going to spend eternity with Jesus once I leave this earth. And so I have that, but still it was the realness of knowing I didn't want to die then. I didn't want to leave my family, but we can look back and see how God had prepared us for that. Chris and I had grown so much in our closeness in our marriage. And then also, the very first night I was diagnosed, when we made 3 hard phone calls to our kids, and they immediately came to our house. And that was like one of our hardest nights, but one of our best nights as a family. And I told them that, and we just did real talk that night. I mean, cried, laughed, did it all. And I told them I was so thankful that all 3 of my kids have their own relationship with Jesus. They have a faith of their own, not their family faith. That family faith has become their own. And while they would be really sad if I died, that's not going to affect their walk with Jesus. And because of that, I felt like so much pressure was taken off of me. I felt like my biggest goal in life had been accomplished. And I wanted to stay here with them to enjoy that. But that just gave me freedom to just focus on this instead of being worried about them. And my kids were very much a part of all of it. And God's people loved us. So God loved us so much through his people. I can't even, so many needs were met, so many prayers, so much everything. And it kind of all culminated on a Sunday toward the end of my treatment. I think I had 1 more to go, and I was sick of chemo by then. My kids knew this. A friend had planned this. Chris and I knew nothing about it. We were at our house, and doorbell rang. And so one of my girls went and opened it, and they're like, "Mom, there's somebody here for you." And I went outside, and I'll get emotional talking about it. There was around 150-ish to 200 people in my front yard. And these were people from every aspect of our life, from our church, from our small group, from our life group, from our ReEngage community, to my BSF sisters, to kids I had coached in youth sports, to neighbors. And they were there, and they circled our house, and they prayed for us. And
wow,
that was like a slice of heaven. So God ministered to us. He was present the whole time. And I can't even tell you how much love was poured onto us, but God was so present. God had a purpose in this, and that gave us purpose in this.
Wow. Well, that's a beautiful reminder for all of us too, for those who are supporting others going through sickness and hard times. Don't shy away, be there.
Yes.
And
that is something we learned. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Just a little learning that we can all take from that. That's beautiful. I love that. So obviously I think it seems like everything has changed for you on this side of cancer. So what are some of the big things that, how do you see the world differently on this side of cancer?
Okay, there's a Bible verse in Psalms 118, and the verse is a very familiar one. It's, "This is the day the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it." That verse just took on a new meaning for me. God has given me today. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but honestly, none of us know what tomorrow holds. None of us are promised tomorrow, but we do know today. And I want to live all of my todays to the glory of God. There are only 2 things that last forever, and that's God's word and God's people. And that's what I want to spend, however many days I have left on this earth. I want to spend investing. I want to spend it in God's word and investing in God's people, and just encourage more people or introduce more people to Jesus. That's where I want to spend my time and my energy.
That is, yeah.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. And the other thing is exactly what you just said. Chris and I were overwhelmed, encouraged, and convicted to love with action. When people are hurting, when people have a need, don't just have empathy for them, and really not just pray for them, but to meet a need, to be there, and to love with action. So that's how we're different.
I'm going to hold on to that. Love with action. That is so important. Okay. So, wow, this is so, I'm so grateful that you're here, because it really just shifts my mindset too. Every day is a gift. Who we see around us is a gift. Our bodies are a gift. And that's kind of my little niche of where, this city.
For sure. You have made a huge impact in that niche, for sure.
Well, thank you.
Everybody knows you. Everybody knows you.
Dana, everyone knows you. I'm getting text on the side like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you have Dana Adamson on. Like, yeah, she's a legend. Okay, so at the end of the day, what are a couple tips, practical ways that when we feel that fear start to sink in and overcome us, what are some practical ways we can, take a different road forward?
Yeah. Okay, first of all, fear is normal, and fear is even good. It protects us, That's why we don't touch fire or pick up a snake. But it's when it starts consuming us and it starts affecting our decisions and our actions that we know, okay, fear is not what we have a problem here. And it's my faith is what overcomes fear. And I want to be really clear with this. It's not having faith in myself or having faith that my friends are going to be there for me or having faith that this is going to be the outcome. The object of your faith is the most important part of it. And the object of my faith is Jesus Christ. And so only because my faith is in him can I overcome my fear. Practical things I do when I fear overtaking me is I pick up my Bible and I claim those promises that are so clear in the Bible. Promises like, that he will never leave us or forsake us. I cannot go anywhere that Jesus is not there. The promise that God is in control, even when it doesn't seem like it, even in this pandemic, even when it doesn't naturally appear that God is in control, he is. And that God loves me and God is going to act for me. I claim those promises when I don't feel that they're true. I claim them. I pray and I tell him exactly what I'm scared of. And I ask him. And I think community is so important, to have a person that you can just be ugly honest with. I don't have to try to be pretty in front of them. I can just tell them, this is what I'm feeling. And then I reflect on his past faithfulness. Like, he has been so faithful and so good so many times in my life. And so I go back to, when I'm starting to shake, I go back to his faithfulness and say, you know what? He's that same God. He is not going to change. And he is that same God. So it's only because Jesus is the object of my faith that I can conquer fear. That's it.
That's perfect, because we are human. And if we just continue to try to overcome by ourselves, we're going to fail. I mean, that's just a human nature, but God will never fail us. So, and we've got friends watching who are, I know one lady whose family member is going through cancer. Another is saying, claim the promises of God. Love that. So thank you so much for, sharing your wisdom and how you've battled fear. Is there anything else that, before we get to our fun quickfire questions, anything else that we missed that you want to leave everyone with?
I don't think so. I think we've kind of covered it, and just, no, I think it's it. I mean, fear is natural. We're going to have it. We're going to battle it. But I just encourage people to run to Jesus. He's going to determine the outcome of everything ultimately anyway. So we are going to the one person that has the power to do something about it.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So once again, such an honor to talk with you. And it's just inspirational hearing you talk. And it's really building my faith as well. So thank you. So let's get to we're a little over time, but that's okay.
Sorry.
The workout is recorded, so you can play it anytime. But let's take 1 minute to do some fun quickfire questions. So first of all, favorite basketball move?
Okay. I'm a point guard. And so my very favorite thing to do in basketball is to break a press. So whatever dribbling moves I have to use, that's my favorite thing to do on a basketball court.
Man, I admire you, because I was a 3 guard and I hated the press.
Most people do if you're not a point guard, but that is my favorite.
Like, don't pressure me to dribble, please. I'm looking for you, Dana. I will pass it off real quick.
We have been great teammates. Hey,
yes.
I didn't want to shoot it. I wanted to pass it to you and let you shoot it.
I'll shoot all day long. Everyone knows that. Hilarious. Okay. Favorite basketball player?
I don't have a favorite basketball player, but I have a favorite football player.
Okay.
And it's Tua Tagovailoa, the quarterback from Alabama, that's such a strong believer in vocal in his faith, and he's a great player. Just got drafted by Miami. He's my favorite player.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Favorite thing to do with your family?
Okay, my favorite thing, we're about to outgrow this because my oldest granddaughter is 4, but my favorite thing is for everybody to come over here, and it's total chaos because I have 6 grandkids under 4 and under, and we play hard, and then about 1:30 we put them all down for naps, and then the adults, we sit down and have a big meal together that we can really have conversations with without the kids being underfoot. That's my favorite time.
That's genius. I love it. Okay, one blessing that has come out of this shelter in place time.
Personally, Chris has been home a lot more because his office has been shut down, so that's been sweet. But all of our kids have kind of isolated themselves, and they're kind of our isolation team, and we've gotten together. There's not a lot of schedule conflicts, and so we've gotten to spend a lot of time together doing that. So that's been my personal favorite thing about the virus and our shelter in place.
Yes, family time. Oh,
yeah. And home cooked meals. Hey, my grocery bill has like tripled, but
yes,
we're eating home cooked meals all the time.
Yes, we are too. And we're actually, Luke and I cook together sometimes too. So okay. It's been great family time for us as well.
Great.
Once again, Dana, thank you so much for sharing your story. You're just an inspiration, and God is using you without a shadow of a doubt. So, thank you for being open to sharing with us and our YMCA community, and then the community at large who will hear your words today. So thank you so much.
Thank you for asking me. It's a privilege to share my story because it just is. So thank you for asking.
You're welcome. Okay, so for everyone who is here for the workout, you are going to jump over into the private workout group that is within this page, and it's workout number 15. It's Les Mills Grit Cardio. So 30 minutes, Dana, you know what that's like? 30 minutes of all out, gut it out, and you're done. Thank you again, and thank you to everyone who watched. And Dana, have a great day. Enjoy your family.
I will. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.